나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교. All right, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope this video finds you in good health and secure. And today we're going to read a short a translation, again from Jacqueline Stone's dissertation. It's a short one. It's a reply to Shijo Kingo, of which there are many. And since it's a short one, I think I will take some time and also discuss the understanding, the basis for thought of the relationship between body and mind. Because as I identified at the beginning of the Angikuden, there's a really problematic statement made there. Whether it's totally the result of the translation, an error, or if it's inculcated by the various languages that this, well, actually it would have been Japanese, right? Ancient Japanese, modern Japanese, Old English, New English. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for some errors to be to manifest in there, but it's such a blatant error that it's really bothering me, and I'm trying to make sure that you understand why it's bothering me. And that got me to thinking that there's this constant reference throughout all the sutras and all the scholarship, from Shakyamuni's Expedient Means through all of the various scholarship that we follow and read. References to sacrifices of the body, references to enlightenment in this very body. And so I think it's a loci, a place of kind of like a tripwire for especially the new practitioner of Lotus Sutra Buddhism. It can very easily be interpreted as some kind of part and parcel of the achievement of enlightenment being located in the body. And those words in that order are incredibly misleading. They leave room for old baggage from religions or other forms, early forms of Buddhism, to not fully understand what's going on between mind and body, specifically and within Buddhism. This was a problem of the early teachings, even though they were hyper-focused on this very problematic of enlightenment and where and how does it take place. Most early teaching sects still, although they preached and mouthed the concept of mind and non-self, right? That's the most obvious statement to make about body. Still, there's a sort of a, really almost a fetish about locating within the body the place of the dedication to the formation, if you will, of awakening. And that's entirely wrong. And so I want to get into that. But first, let's read this brief Gosho. and see, with that thought in mind, if anything pops out of it. And here we go. This Gosho, one page, is titled A Reply to Shijo Kingo Dono. And let's begin. For all living beings, this is Nichiren now, in case I lost you somewhere there. For all living beings, there is no place of joy. All right, let's start over. For all living beings, there is no pleasure or joy apart from chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. The sutra states, quote, ... wherein the beings find pleasure and joy, end quote. Doesn't this passage refer to the joy of the Dharma received for oneself? Aren't you included among the beings, quote unquote? Quote unquote, wherein refers to Jambudvipa, the world. The country of Japan lies within Jambudvipa, your country as well, right? The country of Japan lies within Jambudvipa. As for the, quote, pleasures and joy, doesn't this mean that our body and mind, our dependent and primary reward, are all the single thought moment comprising 3,000 realms and also the Buddha's self-enjoyment body or reward body? There is no pleasure and joy apart from embracing the Lotus Sutra. This is what it means in speaking of quote, security and peace in the present life and latter birth in a good place, end quote. This is the perfect Gosho for what I want to talk about. It's amazing. This is what it means in speaking of security and peace in the present life and later birth in a good place. Right? Birth, death. Even if worldly troubles should arise, you must pay them no heed. Not even worthies and sages can avoid these things. This is samsara. Just do your sake drinking with your wife and chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Now that seems really what a friend of mine would call controversial. But this is Nichiren saying this. And I'm specifically referring to mind-altering things like sake. Take suffering as suffering, enjoy pleasures for what they are, and whether in suffering or joy, continue chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Now that's a real critical statement for what I want to talk about. How can this not be the joy of the Dharma received for oneself? Muster the strong power of conviction and confidence all the more. With deep respect, my deep respect, Kenji 2, 1276, Ne Hinoe, 6th month, 27th day, in reply to Shijo Kingo Dono, Nichiren, his written seal. So, as we Buddhists are noted for doing, let's take that apart. Let me first reintroduce you to something that I've talked about at length in the Origins of Life videos from years ago, the 3,000 Realms, which I've talked about recently several times, the structure of original enlightenment, which we're all talking about the same thing in all these various names, and it can get overwhelming, all these words and word salad, right? So I want to nail this down in a clear way, but a simple way. So, I don't know if this is a great analogy, but what came to me this morning was the hammer and the nail. And I thought to myself, how did the nail come about? And I thought, well, one possible answer to that is that very early on, human tribes, pre-tribe even, but certainly tribally, a small group of people would have designated responsibilities. Sandra, my patron, has just called me to let me know that she's going to go up there and take her to go see her in an emergency room because her heart is palpitating, doing all these things. And so, yeah, it concerns me for her mother's sake, and it certainly concerns me that, when we get distracted with highly emotional things like this, driving for 50 miles, and Sandra's 67, 68, it's very wearing, and I don't want her to get distracted, so I'm concerned for her safety. Anyway, enough on that. Back to, oddly enough, mind and body. Just for a moment, can you capture how insane it is, how interrelated everything is in our lives? When that becomes more and more apparent to you as you continue your practice, it really sits you down on your butt every now and again to just fathom this huge complexity coming down to just these little amalgams of stuff going on. And they all seem to have a particular rhythm to them. It's very, very awesome to be able to see it, certainly. And that's to the point of my discussion today. For all living beings, there is no pleasure or joy apart from chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. In the very next statement, or almost the next statement, doesn't this passage refer to the joy of the Dharma received for one's self? See, just reading that, there's lots of question marks that pop up, don't they? Received from what? From where? For oneself? What do you mean self? What's going on? What are you saying? Aren't you included among the beings? Wherein refers to Jambavipa, in other words, samsara, not some mystical place. The country of Japan lies within Jambavipa, wherever we are situated in this geography, on this planet, around the sun, in the galaxy of the Milky Way, hurtling through a universe that we can't even imagine how huge it is, amongst all the other galaxies and nebula, so on and so on. And then he drops this bomb, pleasure and joy. Doesn't this mean that our body and mind, our dependent and primary recompense or reward, are all the single thought moment comprising the 3,000 realms and also the Buddha's reward body? He just said a huge mouthful right there. And this is where the confusion can begin. So this is what I want to straighten out for you. The mind isn't born. The mind doesn't come out of a womb. The mind doesn't have its own. You can't touch it, feel it. You can't locate it. The mind is an emergent property. Therefore, the mind requires, for it to exist, for it to manifest, the mind requires some sort of support, something from which it can manifest. So in Buddhism, and hopefully this shakes loose all the confusion of everything you've read on this, the mind does not exist without that support. That support is the apparatus from which the mind manifests. So what is that apparatus? What is that support? Well, in the very immediate understanding, it's our body. Our body is the apparatus, the support for the mind to be born, to be manifest. But Buddhism can't stop with that simple of an answer, can it? Because it's actually quite awe-inspiring to start to dissect that and understand how profound that is. The body exists, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the legs, the arms, the brain. Make no mistake, the brain is body. The brain is a fabulous computer that keeps this machine, this apparatus, this support going so that the mind can exist. If it's physical, it's body. If it is physical, it is body. So, in that simplified terminology, where does enlightenment occur? Where does awakening occur? What is Buddhism, as I say all the time? What is Buddhism at its core about? The mind. And you'll see this, as we talk about it, you'll see this whenever you read something. Where does enlightenment happen? In the mind. What does it look like? Attitude and intent. How do we instantiate it? Attitude and intent. Deep conviction that we can open that part of our mind, our consciousness, and we have 9 consciousnesses. And they're all operating 24/7, but we're not using them directly. We can, and that's our practice of Buddhism. To instantiate our 9th consciousness, our Amala consciousness, our Buddha-ness, we must make an effort. It's all about the mind. But then we talk about the 3 bodies of Buddha. So you're saying Buddha has bodies? Let's say it this way. The mind cannot exist without the apparatus of the body. And the apparatus of the body is our means of utilizing the mind. And that comes down to our samsaric mind. So the 8 consciousnesses, although they use the brain to perceive and to attach and to embrace, the embracing and the attaching happens in our base mind, our human mind. So look at mind as 2 segregated areas. You go to a football game, there's the bleachers, full of people yelling and talking like the monkey mind, our samsaric mind. And on the field, there's a much more specific area of mind that is actually what it's about. It's not a great analogy, but maybe it's helpful. Because not only are the bleachers our samsaric mind, but they surround the Buddha field. And what we do when we chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, we make that Buddha field become the stadium. It circles and around and embraces and clears the vision for the bleachers and the Buddha field. So everything becomes clarified. And there's a hush on the bleachers as they are attentive to the Buddha mind. That analogy work? So now I'm going to take this a little further. In each moment of life, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, we, human, samsaric apparatus and samsaric mind, bleacher minds, also experience, though we may not be paying attention to it, our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th consciousness. But what we're paying attention to are sight, sound, feeling, temperature, body, right? The consciousness that have to do with our function in samsara is what we're constantly aware of. And that's why we're attached to all of this with that consciousness. But those deeper consciousnesses that those bodily consciousness are built on top of, they're hard at work, but we're not paying attention to them. Very infrequently, we can sit around and have deep internal thoughts in conversation with one another. I broke up. I don't know why I was getting into these situations. What's wrong with me? I seem to always do this. That's our samsaric mind trying to understand our underlying conditions and tendencies. That's when we're looking into that 7th and 8th, or at least the 6th and 7th mind mono consciousnesses. But in conversations, how often have you talked to your friend or your sibling or whatever about the sheer joy and magnificence of life in general, everything? It's a conversation we don't have enough. We may have awe. Maybe we're hiking. We find some rapids. We listen to them. We sit there. We eat a snack while we sit and rest from our hike, and we just look around and we're blown away by just being physically here and witnessing physicality. But how often has that happened for you lately? Right? And even more profound than that, when you sit in front of your Butsudan, focus in on your mandala and invoke your Buddha mind, your 9th consciousness, all of those others suddenly they just kind of disappear. It's not that they're gone, but your focus is completely in your Buddha-ness. And then when you turn away and course into the samsaric world that you live in, everything seems much more precious, much more awe-inspiring. It makes you giddy. It's wow. Kind of feel like a 3-year-old looking around, right? Or maybe a 3-month-old, mouth ajar, eyes wide open. That's an intense feeling. And how often have we talked about that? Unless you're a Buddhist and you know this experience, you've probably never had that conversation with anyone, let alone yourself. That conversation, that realization, it doesn't happen in your body. You may feel it in your body, but that's because your mind has changed. Your mind's perception has opened and changed and perceived the grandeur, because when that happens, it's not just this body. So Buddhism has a profound appreciation for body, but understand this. even though Buddhist stories, expedient means, teaching analogies have certain people burning their arms or ripping their flesh off, cutting out their tongues, all these physical, pretty gruesome offerings. The idea of body in Buddhism is that this body cannot exist. Remember, the mind can't exist without the apparatus. But the apparatus, we're very self-involved creatures, and we think that apparatus is ourselves. But yourself can't exist in the same way without this planet. Oxygen, water, trees, food, other species. And this planet and the air and the atmosphere and the water cannot exist without this specific location in a solar system, in a galaxy, in a vast manifested universe. All of it in Buddhism is the apparatus to emerge the mind. So now rethink your little body in terms of being inexorably not separate from the entirety of the universe. You're just an organism within the greater body that is the universe. And your mind, and my mind, and her mind, and his mind. This is the place, Jambudvipa. Oh, what an amazing video this is going to be. But you see what I'm talking about? In Buddhism, everything that's not the mind is body, basically. And this body that you inhabit is not just this body. This body exists because of the body. It's nothing holy. It's nothing mystical. It's sheer logic. Use your reason. Could you exist without your mother or father? Or in this age, I guess I have to say, could you exist without a progenitive cell, an egg, and sperm? Because they didn't just appear. They too owe their existence to the bigger picture. And Buddhism is a very big picture and micro picture of the nature of being. Being is a verb. So when he says, are we not beings? Well, yeah, everything is being. The earth is being. The universe is being. You try to embrace the big picture, and your mind suddenly becomes capable of much more massive encompassing and embracing than your little samsaric life of baubles and dramas. The Dharma makes the drama look infantile and tiny. But if you're not in the Dharma of enlightenment, then you're in the dharmas of attachment, earthly, body, physicality, and that can be immense, like the universe. So it's no small task to reach in through all those consciousnesses and physicality and reach this core that is a timeless truth, because it's always part and parcel of the whole drama. But the only place you can see it, be it, feel it, experience it, is when the mind is emergent. And where's the only place that that happens? In this human experience, in samsara. How many times have you heard how incredibly specific and special this whole human existence is when you take it in the scope of everything we've been able to find in the universe? We're the only ones in a space we can't even fathom. So understand, when we speak in Buddhism and when he says things like, I love this one. As for pleasure and joy, doesn't this mean that our body and mind, now rehear that sentence, our body, the apparatus, the entirety of the universe, through your portal and mind, emergent mind, that body, our dependent and primary reward, that's original enlightenment right there. Our dependent, samsara, and primary, the seed from which this body occurs that emerges your mind, are all the single thought moment comprising 3,000 realms and also the Buddha's reward body. So in your emergent mind, in each thought moment, the knowing, not the realization, the knowing of this entire apparatus and all of its various dramas is present and very preoccupying. But in chanting, we become aware of the value of that. And that is the reward body of Tathagata that we all can experience. So when we talk about the manifest body, which is the body writ large, from that original moment from which the entire universe expands, and we are eventually manifested, also we can emerge a mind. It's beyond comprehension. But the three bodies, and we've talked about this, of Buddha, manifest the body in its entirety, not just this solo one. That's the manifest body. But we only understand that through our enlightenment, through our mind of Buddha, our mind of ninth consciousness, Amala, our clear mind. We understand the largesse of manifestation. Manifestation that is in accord with reality. That's why it's the Buddha manifestation. And the sensation, the experience of knowing that is the recompense. It's the reward. It's the, oh my goodness, how precious is this, is the recompense Buddha body. And what permits us or allows us to be able to get our mind to know these two things. That's the Dharma, the formative energy of everything, the Dharma body, the knowledge body, the experience body. So the experience which exists to manifest the realization and reward occurs in the physical apparatus of the mind that exists solely through that apparatus. So, yeah, they're intertwined, but they still are separate facets of our experience. I hope that makes some sense. I hope you're starting to see more clearly the implications of awakening and the difficulty to describe this awakening and the experience of it within the confines of language. As to the later statement, this is what it means in speaking of security and peace in present life and later birth in a good place. That's really simple. It sounds, and a lot of religious kind of magical thinking will make that sound like we're born, we go through this life, and then we die, but there's some little box of Bob or bag of Betty or some essence that continues after our death, just to be reborn again, over and over and over again. That is not Buddhism. That's magical thinking. And in Buddhism, it exists through the cultures that were being taught, which were largely Indian. And if you look at India today, you will see the plethora of holy beings and gods and deities and the mishmash of it. It's incredible. The mysticism. And it's not just in India, of course, but I'm speaking of India because this was the origins of Shakyamuni's teachings of Buddhism. And he was very cataclysmic to a lot of beliefs at the time. He was trying to clean house. Karma was a very big thing. It got him stoned. People would throw stones at him. How could you do that? How could you say that? People were used to being told by elders, elites, what their life was going to be, what their destiny was, there was a caste system. You're never going to be these other things because you're one of these. They were told so by holy beings, Brahmins. And then Shakyamuni comes along and goes, no. Karma is what you make it. You are responsible for your karma, and you can change your karma. It's all in your hands. What? I mean, there was a lot of mind-blowing stuff that Shakyamuni was talking about during his years of teaching, his 50 years or so of teaching Buddhism. He was an iconoclast. There were no deities in Shakyamuni's discussion. A lot of people did not like him. He was empowering people. What the hell are you doing? Yeah, we tend to forget that. We live in an age of tremendous facility and abundance. Not for everyone, by the way. So there's much of a class system, we call it in the West. It's not all that different from the caste system, which still exists in India. So this whole thing of enlightening yourself now. Remember, he started all of this by saying Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. When we practice Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, we embrace, we inculcate, and we achieve a communication with our Buddha mind. The more we do it, the more clearly the mind comes to Buddha-ness, pushes away the bleachers. And so what's happening in that moment? Remember, before he says this, he says the single thought moment, 3,000 realms in the single thought moment. Out of those 3,000 realms, we are instantiating, we are invoking the one Buddha realm. And when we do that, which is obviously the next moment, we are born into enlightenment. Birth, death, constantly abiding, constantly happening. When we invoke the Buddha mind, we are taking every cell in our body, and we are polishing them, making them crystal clear, and living in our Buddha-ness in this body, the big body. All right, probably repeated myself enough now. If somehow I confused you, or sometimes when you reinvestigate something enough, a light goes on in your mind, and suddenly a lot of things just go dun, 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 and fall into place. At the same time, because there's a certain newness and freshness to it, there's a lot of, but does that mean? Are you saying that? And so rather than letting those questions eat at you and create doubt, use the comments. Let me know what it is that's perturbing you. I will address it because this is so important to understand. Okay? All right, now I've got some editing to do to make this video a little less interrupted with your understanding and your effort and your allegiance, your patience, your attentiveness. Thank you so much for listening, for liking. Like this, subscribe, please. Slowly we keep, it's a slow process, and that's okay. But, we gain 4 or 5 steps, and we lose 1, 2, 3, and then we gain 5, 6, 7. And slowly our Sangha is growing. And I'm so impressed by you guys because you're doing it. And to those of you who are financial contributors, well, what can I say? We wouldn't even be here without you. So amazing, amazing. Don't forget, I just told a new person, don't forget the Threefold Lotus or threefoldlotus.com website. Lots of free information there. Don't forget you can download these videos as oral podcasts and keep them listen to them in your car. Well, I'm not a fan of distracted driving, but maybe while you do other things. I like to listen to podcasts when I'm cooking, I'm creating a meal. A lot of that happens rote, so I can actually pay attention. And of course, don't forget to look at the middle of this on the channel homepage. There's a little magnifying glass icon for search. Or every now and again, look at the playlists. And there'll be a whole bunch of videos focused on that one subject. Don't forget there's a slow Gongyo video and a Daimoku Shodai video. Apart from the Gongyo videos that I'm trying to do every Sunday, there are opportunities for you to work on pronunciation, rhythm, so on and so forth. I'm trying to make this as complete a reference channel for you to practice and as an aid for you to bring other people into the practice, right? It's like having a communal experience with and not feeling like you have to explain everything. You can do that with just the Gongyo, the slow Gongyo, or just a Daimoku. Put that on, and then you guys follow along. It puts less pressure on you. It just makes it easier for you to get comfortable with your practice, not only for yourself, but as Bodhisattva, which is the goal of our practice, right? So use me. Use the channel. Use the tools I'm offering you. Yes, there's the bookstore. There's the Mandala Gohanzan store. I don't have a Butsudan store because I just don't have time to build Butsudans. Although that would be an interesting thing to do. It's such a commercial endeavor. I spend so much time studying and getting this whole apparatus for the channel. That's my first priority. Maybe this summer. If you think that's a good idea, would you let me know in the comments that I could just build simple but elegant Butsudans for as low a cost as I could provide them? Yeah, maybe that would be helpful. Let me know your thoughts. Might have a little, now I'm thinking about it as a whole starter kit for practice with a Butsudan. I don't want to get into all the other altar, candlesticks and all that. Just the Butsudan and a mandala and instructions, and then everything else is up to you. That might be interesting. Never been done, that's for sure. Let me know your thoughts, okay? In the meantime, please, please, please be mindful of your health. Be kind. Be kind to yourself. It's a lot of work, what we're doing. But don't let that dissuade you. Be confident this is working. You'll always get actual proof in your life. Okay? Like, subscribe, share. Don't forget the utility. And the oral podcast. I already said that, right? Thank you for being here. I'm going to go now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.